You've been surrounded by symbols your entire life, on buildings, books, and dreams. But what if they were never just decoration? What if they were messages, left in plain sight? Have you ever felt like the world was speaking to you, but in a language you were never taught? You see a shape, again and again, a triangle, an eye, a spiral, on a building, on a book, in your dreams, and you dismiss it. You laugh it off. You scroll past. But something lingers. Something tugs at you from behind your own eyes. The world is not only stranger than we suppose, it is stranger than we can suppose. J.B.S. Haldane said that. And maybe, just maybe, he was right. What if everything you ignored was a code, a whisper, a warning? What if the very symbols you've overlooked were left here for you? They appear in cathedrals and currencies, in corporate logos, in your childhood memories. And still, no one ever told you how to read them. Decode the symbolism, how the ancients hid truth in plain sight. Yes, that's what this is. That's what we're doing now, because they left the clues everywhere, but you were taught not to see. So today, we look again, not with the eyes that learned to filter, but with the soul that came here to remember. Are you ready? Close your eyes for just a second, breathe, and feel what awakens when silence becomes recognition. The frequency of forgetting how you were trained to miss the message. There's a certain ache that lives in those who are quietly searching, a kind of emptiness that doesn't come from loss, but from forgetting. Forgetting something that once made sense. Before the noise, before the conditioning, before the world told you what was real. We are born seeing, not just with our eyes, but with something deeper, but slowly, through repetition, through expectation, through the quiet pressure of society. We are taught to look without seeing. We are trained to forget. Not just facts, but frequencies, the language of the universe, the voice of our own soul. You were shown letters, but not symbols, numbers, but not patterns. You learned to decode math, but not meaning. Somewhere along the way, you began to trust only what could be explained, only what could be measured. Everything else, intuition, sensation, energy, imagery, was pushed aside. And yet, the symbols never stopped appearing. They showed up on currency, on architecture, in art, in silence. Not to scare you, not to control you, but to remind you. The ancients knew this. They encoded their wisdom in vibrational maps, not sentences, in spirals, circles, stars, trees. Your mind was taught to filter out what didn't seem useful. But what if the most useful truths are the ones you were told to ignore? Imagine a radio, a beautiful, cosmic radio. You've been spinning the dial, endlessly searching without realizing. You were always tuned to the wrong station. The music was there, the signal was strong, but your setting wasn't. This isn't your fault. It's a collective forgetting, a spiritual amnesia, but something inside you remembers, the hidden language of archetypes, why symbols speak to the soul. There are things your mind can't explain, but your soul instantly understands. A cross, a circle, a serpent swallowing its own tail. You see them, and something stirs, not in thought, in memory, in the marrow of your being. Carl Jung called them archetypes, symbols that speak not to the surface of who you are, but to the depths. They are bridges between worlds, between who you think you are and who you've always been. These images don't inform, they awaken. That's why a mandala isn't just an ornament. It's a map, a reflection of the inner path. Every layer, every color, every pattern echoes the journey of consciousness, from fragmentation to wholeness. Symbols are spiritual cryptography. A secret language that doesn't need to be spoken aloud to be heard. They are the alphabet of the soul. And when you learn to see them, truly see them, you begin to feel less lost, because you're no longer wandering through a world of meaningless signs. You're walking inside a story, but when we ignore the language of symbols, it's like walking through a vast, beautiful forest with your GPS off. The path is there, the signs are there, but you can't recognize them, not yet. And so you feel tired, disoriented, disconnected, not because you're far from the truth, but because you've forgotten how to read it. The cross was never just a cross. The circle was never just a circle. They are mirrors, mirrors of your own light, waiting to be remembered. Spiritual blindfolds. The Matrix taught you to see without seeing. It's a strange paradox, isn't it? The more we try to understand the world, the more blind we seem to become. From a young age, we're trained to analyze, to label, to categorize. We're told what's valuable and what's not, what's sacred and what's silly. Slowly, a filter is built over our vision, not of cloth, but of belief. You were taught to see symbols through the eyes of control, not consciousness. Take the all-seeing eye. Once it was a symbol of divine awareness, the eye of Ra, the window to the soul, the knowing of the cosmos. Now, it's stamped on money, surrounded by fear, and turned into a tool of surveillance. That's not coincidence, that's programming. The system, the matrix, the cultural machine learned that symbols hold power. So instead of erasing them, it inverted them. It drained their essence. It told you the eye watches you, that the serpent is evil, that the pentagram is dangerous, but truth doesn't vanish. It just gets buried beneath noise. The more you try to understand a symbol through logic alone, the less you feel its frequency. The symbol isn't there to be explained. It's there to be remembered, to be felt in your bones, not dissected in your mind. They turned sacred images into background noise, into decoration, into cliché. But you can reclaim them. You can begin to see again, not with suspicion, but with presence. The Matrix taught you to look without seeing, but your soul, it never stopped seeing. Symbolic repetition, when the universe speaks in echoes. There comes a moment, quiet, often dismissed, when you notice it. The same number on every clock. A symbol that shows up in a dream, then on a book cover, then again in the street. A pattern you can't explain, but can't ignore. Most people brush it off. Coincidence, they say. But is it? What if it's resonance? The universe doesn't shout. It whispers, repeats, echoes. When a symbol begins to follow you, it's not random. It's not superstition, it's vibration. It's a message from the field of consciousness, tuned precisely to your inner state. Visual synchronicities are not signs of insanity, they are signs of awakening. Your brain, wired for survival, filters out the majority of information around you. But when something pierces that filter again and again, it's because it's speaking a language deeper than logic. Sacred patterns like the Fibonacci sequence, the golden spiral, fractals in nature, they aren't aesthetic accidents. They are fingerprints of creation, geometry woven into the soul of reality. Science shows us how these patterns trigger specific neural responses, calming the mind, activating presence, aligning emotion. When the same symbol appears again and again and again, don't just look, listen. The repetition isn't a glitch, it's a guidance. The universe is echoing itself through form, trying to remind your soul of something it once knew, and it will keep whispering until you no longer call it coincidence. The guardians of symbols. Why ancient societies protected them. In the ancient world, wisdom was not shouted, it was guarded, protected not by secrecy, but by symbolism. They carved it into stone, painted it in caves, wove it into fabric. not because they wanted to hide the truth, but because they wanted it to survive. Words fade, languages die, but symbols endure. Why did the Egyptians inscribe entire temples with hieroglyphs? Why did the Druids speak in circles and trees? Why did the Essenes veil their teachings in layered meaning? Because symbols bypass corruption. They transcend time, translation, even destruction. They are seeds, seeds of remembrance. To the untrained eye, a symbol is decoration, but to the initiated, to those who have eyes to see, it is revelation. Ancient initiatory schools didn't just teach knowledge, they trained perception. They showed their seekers how to see with the soul, to read the invisible, to feel the sacred embedded in form. And yet today, those same symbols are often mocked, ridiculed, dismissed as superstition or conspiracy. But why? Why would something harmless cause discomfort, unless it still holds power? Perhaps the discomfort isn't because the symbol is empty, but because it's full of memory, full of light, full of a truth your conditioned self was taught to forget. The ancients weren't primitive, they were precise. They understood that what is sacred cannot be shouted, it must be sensed. Emotional resonance. Why some symbols make you feel without knowing why. There are moments when a simple shape moves you to tears. You don't know why. You can't explain it. But something deep inside you responds, without words. That is emotional resonance. Before the mind even begins to interpret, the body already knows. The heart has already felt. A symbol bypasses thought. It speaks directly to the limbic system, the emotional center of your brain, triggering memories that don't come from this lifetime, but from something deeper. That's why certain icons stop you, why certain patterns make you feel like you've been here before. Because you have. Not in geography, but in vibration. Science now begins to understand what mystics have always known, that sacred patterns activate subtle regions of the brain, that geometry can awaken states of expanded perception, that the pineal gland, once dismissed as irrelevant, is in fact a gateway, a lens through which the unseen becomes felt. You don't look at a symbol, you absorb it. It resonates with a frequency already alive within you. It's not just an image, it's a mirror. A reflection of a part of you long buried beneath survival, noise, routine. The cross, the spiral, the lotus. They're not inventions, they're keys. Keys that open doors to forgotten chambers of the soul. Think of them as cosmic stamps. Seals imprinted on your consciousness long before your first breath. So when you feel something stir, don't dismiss it. That shiver, that ache, that inexplicable sense of longing is your soul remembering its language. The symbol as a portal, how to use them to shift frequency. Some people carry crystals, others meditate in silence. But for thousands of years, there were those who simply gazed. They would sit before a symbol, a single form, and breathe, slowly, deliberately, not as a ritual of belief, but as a retuning, a realignment, a remembering. Because symbols are not just messages, they are portals, gateways through which frequency becomes form, and form becomes transformation. When you look at a sacred symbol with presence, when your breath softens, your gaze deepens, and your heart opens, something shifts. It's not imagination, it's entrainment. Your nervous system begins to mirror the pattern. Your cells respond to geometry. Your brain forms new connections. You start to resonate with a higher order. This is why monks chant before mandalas, why alchemists drew circles within circles, why yogis focus on yantras. They weren't worshipping images, they were synchronizing with them. The breath slows, the mind quiets, the body releases, and in that stillness, the symbol becomes more than shape. It becomes a doorway. Imagine choosing one symbol Just one, a spiral, a star, a geometric form that calls to you, sitting with it every day, not to think about it, but to feel it, to let it move you from the inside out. You begin to notice clarity, calm, synchronicity. The external begins to mirror the internal. Because you've tuned your field, not with effort, but with presence. Symbols are not decorations, they are instruments, and when you use them with intention, they tune you back to the frequency of your essence. The real reason. They hid the symbols in plain sight. Here's the truth they won't teach you in school. The symbols were never hidden. They were placed everywhere. On your money, on your monuments, in your movies. Not to deceive you, but to endure. The greatest secret wasn't what the symbols meant, but that you were never taught to look, because whoever controls meaning controls perception. The eye, the spiral, the triangle, they were stripped of context, reduced to cliché, or warped into fear. But the original vibration remains, dormant, waiting. The ancients didn't carve symbols into stone because they wanted to be mysterious. They did it because stone survives. Because vibration etched in form lasts longer than memory spoken in words. They knew that someday the noise would rise. That truth would be buried beneath systems and screens, so they encoded wisdom into the architecture of reality, not to be hidden, but to be found when you were ready. And now you are, because the symbol only activates when the soul is prepared. That's why you've been feeling what you feel. That strange pull, that sense of remembering. That quiet knowing that something is waking up inside you. The symbol is not the answer, it's the key, and the door it opens is you, learning to see again. The world never truly hid the truth from you, it simply encoded it, in signs, in shapes, in sensations. Not to keep you in the dark, but to ensure the light would still be there when you were finally ready to see it. The moment you begin to see with presence, every symbol becomes a guide, every pattern a message, every repetition a whisper from the soul of the universe saying, you are not lost, you are being guided. You were never blind, just conditioned. You were never broken, just untrained to feel the language that speaks in silence. So now, slow down. Look again, not with your eyes, but with the gaze of your inner knowing. Let your body respond. Let your spirit lean in, because the world is not flat words and cold facts. It's a living poem, and every symbol you see from now on is an invitation. An invitation to remember what you already carry. If this message spoke to your soul, write in the comments, I am ready to see with my soul's eyes. If you felt something move inside you, that's not coincidence, that's remembrance. Leave your like, subscribe to Echoes of the Path, and let this be the beginning of something ancient awakening within you. Watch the next video we've chosen for you. It holds even more sacred truths, waiting to meet you at the perfect time. This is not the end. It's a beginning you've always carried inside you. If this message touched something deep within, it's because you already knew.